You're listening to Releasing Trauma, a survivor's podcast. And now here's your host, Tracy Osborne. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Today, we are talking about destigmatizing suicide and mental illness. And this is super, super, super important because there is such a huge stigma around mental illness, definitely around suicide. And that's why so many people don't want to talk about it or don't want to acknowledge it. They don't want to bring it up. They don't want to get the help because of the stigmas that are attached to it. And all of that. So joining me today is Marci Savage. She is a suicide survivor, I guess is what they call it, when you have survived somebody else's suicide. And she has done that a couple of times. So Marci, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tracy. Nice to meet you and nice to be here this morning.
It's nice to meet you and nice to have you here. So gosh, death by suicide is, that's a tough one. It's really tough to talk about. People they just don't want to talk about it.
That's right.
But, we have to have these hard conversations or else we are never going to create change.
That's correct. Suicide has grown 24% in the last 20 years, despite having prevention programs, months dedicated to suicide or mental health.
Yep.
But I really believe that the conversations have to start just like at the ground roots, like we're having a conversation today.
Absolutely.
It's a very difficult subject for families to talk about, but it's the truth. And we need to wrestle with it because that stigma keeps people, particularly men, from getting help. And, if you could talk about mental health and going to seek some treatment for mental health, like you do if you were diagnosed with cancer.
Right.
And it be as commonplace as that, I believe that we could really make a difference and that we could save some lives.
Absolutely. But unfortunately, telling somebody that you have cancer or telling somebody that you have a mental illness, you get completely different reactions.
Absolutely. It is, it doesn't, first of all, it doesn't have to be that way. And it shouldn't be that way. The stigma is centuries old.
Mm-hmm.
It's archaic. The word stigma comes from a word that means criminal and slave. And it's just not, it doesn't have to be that way. We've done a lot over the past decades with other social issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why we can't tackle this one. I think that it's one of the most important issues of our day, particularly coming out of the last couple of years.
Oh, definitely. I think, and this is just my own theory, but, I think a lot of it is embarrassment and also fear as well. Fear from different people. So not only fear from me coming out and saying, yes, I have a mental illness, and being afraid of how people are going to treat me and how people are going to react to that. But also, from their end is, okay, well, she has a mental illness. Does that mean she's crazy? Does that mean she's unreliable? Does that mean she's going to hurt somebody? And I think a lot of that is because people are just not educated about it.
Exactly.
Because we don't talk about it.
No. And when we do, let's think about the media. And when we have horrible, mass shootings and things like that, the words that are associated with someone lunatic, crazy, deranged. Those words are frequently thrown out. And that's the power of mental illness. We stay silent and we associate mental health with those types of people rather than it is a 50% of the people in the United States will have some sort of depression episode each year. It is common. It's not crazy. It's not, something that's rare. It's so common. And a lot of people that I believe that suffer from depression or anxiety have learned to live with it. So it becomes part of them. So they don't even see how depressed they are. It just becomes almost second nature, and they've learned how to
mask it.
Yes, and to show the world who they are on the outside.
Yeah.
They spend so much energy doing that they don't take sight or care of what's happening on the inside.
And that right there is just absolutely exhausting, to pretend that you're okay when you're not okay.
That's right.
I mean, I have depression, and pretending that I'm having a good day when I'm not having a good day.
Right.
I am 10 times more drained and exhausted than if I were to just admit and succumb to it, allow it to pass through and do its thing, and then get back on track or whatever.
Right.
So, but again, it's all because of that stigma around it.
That's right. And the stigma is in a case of a death by suicide, the stigma doesn't die when they do. No. It just falls to the family and the friends and everybody else to pick up the pieces of that stigma and try to explain it. I said to someone the other day that I was speaking with another widow and a widower. And I said, I really wish I could have just had your grief. And they kind of looked at me, because they understood how hard just regular grief is.
Mm-hmm.
That you combine this type of death on top of that. It's another super layer of pain and shame and questions and judgments. Mm-hmm. I don't know any other type of death where the deceased character
comes into question.
Evaluated.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a widow, and when I tell people, I lost my husband to a widowmaker. He had a heart attack.
I'm sorry.
At 46.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. That's what I get. I get, I'm so sorry. He was so young. And then now if I had said I lost my husband because he had mental illness and he took his own life, completely different reaction. It would be a completely different reaction. And, honestly, I can't grasp the level of grief that you have gone through, because you have not only lost one husband to suicide, but two. Right. Because I've never been through that. I get the widow part. I totally can understand and empathize with that. But to add that next layer on, you're right. It completely exacerbates it, exaggerates it.
The most painful experience, clearly, I've been through in my life.
Sure.
But actually, my pain and suffering through it pales really in comparison to watching my children. They changed the moment their father died.
Yeah.
The children that I had known and raised changed forever. And now this has to be their story. And it has been a very, very long journey. That's the last thing you want to do is say, my dad took his own life. It's been very painful.
Yeah.
Very painful.
I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Because then along with that, people start thinking, well, there had to be signs. Why didn't you see the signs? Why didn't you do something? Why didn't you say something? I mean, because they just don't know. There are no signs.
Right. Well, actually, the warning signs that are presented on, mental health websites and suicide prevention websites are not typically shown by those that actually do die by suicide. They're shown by those that are struggling and willing perhaps to reach out for help. Mm-hmm. But neither one of my husbands ever started giving things away or started talking about feeling hopelessness or any of that. None of that was visible. They didn't articulate any of that. And any of the signs that they may have shown, the fatigue and withdrawing a bit, could have been explained, particularly in men in their later 50s and early 60s.
Yeah.
To sleep apnea, medications that they would have been taking for high blood pressure, any of that could have explained mm-hmm. how they were acting. And so because they weren't articulating how they were really feeling on the inside. And again, I don't really know that they fully understood the depth of what they were feeling.
Right. It's my understanding that those who do go through with it and take their own lives or even attempt it, let me back up a little bit. I will be the first to admit, years and years and years ago, before I knew better, to me, I always thought suicide was the coward's way out. You're just taking the easy way out. Right. I didn't know any better. And I think a lot of people still feel that way because they don't know any better either. What I know now is that it's not that they're trying to take the easy way out. It's not a cop out. It's not a coward's way out. They are hurting. They are in tremendous pain. And it's not necessarily that they want to die. It's that they want the pain to stop.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the words like selfish and coward, I've heard multiple times.
I'm sure.
From people who knew both of my husbands, particularly my first husband. Being together almost 40 years, through college and then married almost 35 years. Mm. For someone to say those words, they were, I can't really articulate how painful those were. Yeah. But in no way were either one of them selfish or cowards.
Right.
And the pain that they were in is pain that someone like you and I have never felt that kind of pain. Have we all been depressed? Absolutely. Have we all been, had moments of anxiety, especially coming out of COVID? So many people now understand isolation and all of those types of feelings. That's why I think it's so important to be in this conversation right now. Mm-hmm. When people can say, oh, I felt a little bit of that, the fear of the unknown, but we have not been to the place where the pain is so bad that we just need it to stop.
Yeah. I felt that once in my life, and it was shortly after Mark died. Mm. And it was never, I want to end my life or anything. It was, this hurts so much. I just want to go to sleep and not wake up.
Oh,
It
yes.
wasn't that I wanted to die, because I didn't. I
Right.
have so much to live for. It was simply, this hurts so much
Right.
that the only way to stop it is to go to sleep.
I have said more than one time, especially after my first husband, why didn't he take me with him?
Yeah.
The pain of this, watching my adult children
Mm-hmm.
was so painful that, like you don't really want to leave this world, but please make this end. This feeling that is so deep in your soul and in your heart that they're really, it's got a separate language of its own, and words that you and I know, we can't really explain that kind of pain.
Mm-mm.
And those around us don't understand it unless you've been through it.
Yeah.
No one understands. Which has been one of the most difficult parts of this has been trying to say the right words so that people around me, family, friends, could kind of understand,
Yeah.
what it's like. And yes, I guess, most people would say that we're suicide survivors. However, Tracy, I don't use that word survivor, because to me, that means I'm just surviving.
True. Very true.
I'm not thriving and not living.
Yep.
And that has been my focus, is to embrace life. They're gone, and there's nothing I can do about that.
Yep. Nothing will bring them back.
No, nothing. But I refuse to just be a survivor. I just refuse it. And I'm hoping that if people read the book, they can take away at least some education, and hopefully see that it's possible to not just survive these deaths, but to live past them, and to find joy again and happiness.
Because it's possible. Absolutely.
Laughter.
Mm-hmm.
It absolutely is possible, but it's a choice.
Yes. Yes.
You stay mired in it or find a way to get past it.
I have seen
over it.
Yeah, exactly. You don't get over it. You go through it. You learn to live with it. You grow around it.
Right.
That pain is always there.
Always.
It just, there's a meme that I share where it's like a rock in a jar, and the rock is your grief, and it's a very small jar. And then the jar gets bigger and bigger. The rock is still the same size. It's just your jar gets bigger. You grow. So you grow around it. And that's, that's a whole nother stigma right there, is moving forward from losing a husband or losing a wife or, a partner or whatever. It's okay. Well, they're gone. So what? I'm never supposed to be happy again.
Right. Well, people around us look from the outside thinking what they would do when they were in our situation, but they're not. They're not in this situation. Yeah. I have had many friends of mine say, "Oh, I could never find love again. I could never marry again." And I stop them and say, one day you might be in my position, and then we can have that discussion. Yep. Right now, please just don't say or assign some judgments. But that part of our growth, Tracy, you and I, is learning that those judgments are going to be there.
Oh, yeah.
I think our timeline should be X, Y, and Z. But you and I know it's a personal journey.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is different for each of us. And what's right for you and I is right for us.
Exactly.
It may not be right for our neighbor or our friend or our family member, but it's right for us.
Yeah.
And I've been asked recently multiple times, what I've done to heal. And there's several things, but I think the most important thing I did was that I gave myself permission to heal and move forward.
That's important. That's important. And not only permission to heal and move forward, but permission to experience the grief and the loss.
Oh, yes.
That for me was very important because I didn't do that with other types of grief. I didn't really grieve the loss of my parents. I didn't truly grieve the loss of my best friend when she was killed. And so when he died, it was okay. I know what happened to me in the past when I kind of swallowed it. So this time I'm giving myself permission to feel it and to experience it and to, let it process through me.
Mm-hmm.
And only then was I able to give myself the permission to, okay, it's time to go ahead and start moving forward and figuring out my new normal and, all of that.
I read Megan Devine's book, It's Okay If You're Not Okay.
Yes. Such a good book.
One of the writing prompts that she had in that book to her writing classes online was to personify grief. And for me, that was a pivotal turning point. So I sat down and started writing. And the first thing I wrote was, and in this prompt, she said, how did grief meet you? And what does grief sound like and look like? And I was able to take all of those emotions of grief and trauma and pain and loss that swirl in your head in these internal conversations that you have with yourself. And nothing really sticks because you're moving so fast from one emotion to the other. I was able to take grief and kind of set her over in a chair and then talk to her. And in doing that and talking to her, raging at her, was very, very helpful for me because truthfully, grief was the only entity that knew exactly how I was feeling at any moment of any day. And she was difficult. And yet I learned from grief a lot.
Yeah.
And now, grief isn't driving the bus. She's sitting on the bus always. Like you said, it's always there. But most of the time I'm able to, keep her pretty quiet.
Yeah. Every once in a while it'll, she'll pop her head over your shoulder and be like, hey, where are we going?
Absolutely.
This is my stop.
Oh yes.
My turn to drive.
Yes.
But,
yes.
Even, I mean, for me, it's been almost 3 years and, I still have my moments.
Oh,
yes. It doesn't matter. I mean, I'm getting married in 2.5 months.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And, it doesn't matter that I've got another love. It's still there. And I still miss him. And I will always feel that way.
Always. That never goes away.
No. And I mean, there's times where, something, usually it's around, one of the important dates or something.
Mm-hmm.
I will just, I'll have one of I call them my moments when the grief hits. because I allow it to process through, and it's 10, 15 minutes and then
Right.
I'm done and I'm move on. But, it's not uncommon for me to get up and go find him. And, I just have to look at him and he'll just stand up and just wrap me in his arms and let me sob.
Right.
And, and that's exactly what I need.
I think part of that, I think people not in our situation, that's part of the problem, is that they believe that us moving forward, maybe loving someone else, means that we don't love the first one still. Yeah. And I think they get stuck in that moment. And so when they judge our, we really are just getting past it. We don't get over it ever. It's just always there. Mm-hmm. It's just getting past it or through it. And I think they don't understand that piece of it, is why.
And they won't until they've gone through it.
No.
That's, that would be like me trying to understand a mother grieving the loss of her child. I've never been through it. Other than, I've had a couple of miscarriages, but the actual loss of a child, right. I've never experienced that. So I can't understand her path,
right.
Because I haven't walked it myself. So
like my children, I can't understand really their grief. My parents are both living. I haven't lost a parent. So I don't understand their grief.
Yeah.
That's the hard thing in a family unit.
It's tough. It really is. Well, Marci, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us today. This has been fantastic.
I enjoyed it.
Listeners, something very important. If you are feeling that amount of pain where you just want it to end, you don't know how to make it stop, you don't necessarily want to die, you just want the pain to go away, I want you to know that it is okay to reach out and talk to somebody. It is okay. And there are ways for the pain to go away. Mm-hmm. It is possible. Reach out to me, reach out to Marci, reach out to a friend, a family member. It doesn't matter who you reach out to, just reach out to somebody.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Wonderful way to conclude.
And I will have all of Marci's contact information in the show notes. As always, just go to releasingtraumapodcast.com, pull up Marci's episode, and all of her contact information, the link to her book and everything will be there for you. As always, thank you so much for listening. Make sure if you're listening on your favorite podcast app, you give us a like and a follow and a share and all that. And we'll talk to you in the next show. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure you hit subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss a show. Be sure to check us out on our new socials on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.